Welcome to another episode of the Low Point Podcast, where we use the 5 pillars of better golf to help golfers unlock the next level of their game. I'm Ryan, here with my co-host Nik, and we understand that every good swing and every golfer's journey has a low point. Today, we focus on the strategy pillar as we discuss Nik's upcoming round at the famed Torrey Pines South Course in San Diego, my former home course. We go hole by hole to see how we can set Nik up for success on a course he mostly knows from TV. A quick note before we get started. In this episode, at times, Nik sounds as if he's got a bit of a lisp. While there's nothing wrong with having a bit of a lisp, Nik does not have one, so if you listen to the first episode, it might be slightly distracting at first. We encourage you to stay with the episode because we've got great discussion about Torrey Pines, and I promise it becomes less noticeable with a few exceptions. Let's get started.
But I think the point is you still have to try to execute your game plan, even if your prior game plan didn't necessarily go according to. So like, of course you have to adapt, but like on a given hole. But golf is one of those unique games where you have 18 reset points at a minimum, right? So every time you step on a tee box, you have the opportunity to either continue down the path that you're continuing, whether it's positive or negative momentum, and you have the ability to execute on a strategy. And so I actually wanted to talk to you about this week because lucky for me, I'm actually going to play one of your old home courses, Torrey Pines South, next week.
Yeah.
And I think it's obviously a U.S. Open course. Farmers Insurance Open is hosted there every year. It's the kind of course where you can't go in without a strategy. And so I've taken some pretty diligent notes about how I want to go out and execute on the course, playing to my game. So this is going to be like a fun little segment of the episode where we just sort of talk through how I would think about strategy, and then maybe given where you are in your handicap relative to me, like how you would go about things similarly or differently.
Yeah, I'm so excited for this conversation. I think one of the things I love about it is that I wasn't a 5 handicap when I started playing there, right? Like I was, maybe I wasn't a 13 at that point, but I was, I think floating around 10. I think I'd broken single digit at one point, but like was not a lock to be a single digit handicap, would float back up to 11 or 12 or something. And so for me, it's a place where I didn't just go out there and execute. I had to learn how to play a course of that caliber. And it's kind of just a general note about Torrey Pines that, for anybody who's not intimately familiar with the grounds, you have the north and the south courses. The north is a little bit of a lighter test, which is nice because you get to play a little bit of it's different holes, but it feels similar, but it doesn't beat you up as much. So you kind of can take some learnings and apply it to the south course. But the south course, when you step out there, you really have to be diligent about what you're doing. And I learned a lot about what to do in planning before a round and what to do on the course. And so, yeah, I'm very excited for this conversation.
Yeah, I think that it just at a high level, there are 3 sort of things that jump out at me about Torrey Pines South. And for the listening audience, I've had the benefit of playing Torrey Pines South before a couple of times with you. And so I am somewhat familiar with the course. So it's not like I'm going completely blind. But so what I recall from my experience with it is, one, the left-right bunkering. So Torrey Pines South is notorious for having these his and her bunkers, or like however you want to call it, like these coupled bunkers at equal distances on the left and the right side of the fairway, usually in the typical driving distance from the tees. So that makes the landing areas so much smaller. So you really have to be confident in your club selection to avoid those bunkers because they can be pretty deep even for fairway bunkers from what I recall. 2 is kind of hit on it, but like very narrow fairways. So like you really have to have a good control of your club face. You really have to make sure that your start lines are where you want them to be, and there isn't much room for error. And if the rough is grown out, which I have no idea where it stands today, but if the rough is grown out, you can be taking relief shots out of rough even without being behind a tree or any sort of obstacle.
Yeah, so the good news for you is the rough isn't going to be as high as it typically is in January, or as thick, right? I think like typically around the time the PGA plays there is the toughest time from the perspective of the rough. One, because they amp it up for the tournament, right? And it's actually, the locals love to tell you it's a little tougher the week before the tournament or 2 weeks before the tournament because they grow out the rough longer and they actually cut it down for the tournament because they need it to be as long and uniform and whatever they want to do with it. But the other part of it is that, there's a lot more rain in Southern California, typically in January, February, December, like that, those winter months. So it's really lush. It's really thick. But right now you should be walking into something that is non-negligible, but not going to force you into the free drop after 1 minute of looking for it that they apply in the winter rules. So I think it's good because today's conversation will be more about your game rather than how just to manage the course conditions, which is ideal.
So I have an app up here that just has the GPS third tracker for the course, and I thought it would be helpful just to obviously talk through yardages and things like that as well. Just having this at our fingertips. Obviously, execution of the game plan is going to be different than setting up the game plan, but I think the first question that may not be an obvious question to everyone is, I think when people often quote yardages, they typically quote the back tees. I think if as a 15-7 handicap currently index, I definitely am not playing the back 7,800 yard tee. Ridiculous. Nor do I would
unless you have permission. For the record,
you've asked. As someone who's asked,
even keep them out. Like they literally don't keep them out. So you have to get approval. I think it says it on the scorecard.
So wait, approval meaning approval meaning what? Like if I wanted to just tee up from the back box, someone will come out and reprimand you if you try to tee up from 1 foot in the rough.
Yeah, probably on the first tee. Yeah, like somebody would see you and be like, "What are you doing back there?" And like if you wanted to play from back there, you could probably get away with it in general. I mean, yeah, they're going to probably tell you not to if anybody sees you.
So typically when I go and play the course I play, I usually like to play tees that are sort of in the mid 6,000 yard category. So the green tees at Torrey are sort of, they're 66.35. I feel like that's a good number for someone like me. So the next 4 tees would be the whites, and those would be 61.41 yards. I think I'm someone who, obviously, I struggle with direction with my driver, but not necessarily distance. So I do feel like I continuously do want to challenge myself to play longer. So the green tees for me are sort of where I would naturally think about setting up myself. Would you agree that's probably fine?
The green tees, yeah, I would say so. I think that's the furthest back I would typically go as a 15. I mean, you could play the browns are basically the tips that they have out. I was trying to pull up a scorecard here to make sure I was saying this correctly, but the browns are pretty much the tips that they have out. The greens are like comfortable tee. For me, I would play with another guy who was around a 10 handicap, but hit the ball really, fairly short. He would actually hate me if I said really short, but but he didn't hit the ball super far, and he was a 10, but he could scrape it around the greens and stuff, and that was a comfortable tee for him. Some of the holes got a little long, especially like the longer par 4s. But if you were hit the ball, I'd say let's just say like 225 to 250. You can get away with playing the greens. The whites are probably going to be more fun for most people. One of the approaches I took as I played there was trying to achieve a score from tees that were further up. When I first played there, I was like, let's see how hard it is from all these tees. Like, I'm just going to get my ass kicked. And like, that was fun for a time. But then I was like, how do I actually score? And I'd move up and I'd move back when I achieved a score, which was fun. So the whites, even if you're a 5, you're probably going to have fun unless you hit it 300, in which case the course is going to feel really short. So you should move back. But yeah, green.
I think the key,
long way of saying yes.
I think the key takeaway for me is, I think it should be a question. Like, I think you should keep your ego in check and say, look, if I'm here to have a good time and not trying to necessarily feel like I want to push the limits of my game, I probably play the whites, right? Like, I want to go out there and try to improve. Not to mention, I'm on a mission to improve my handicap, as we all know, and the differential is going to be better from a longer yardage tee. So, anyways, we'll move past this point. So, let's start with hole one.
Actually, I want to say something quickly on that. You bring up a good point. I think the tees, you should probably be looking at course rating and slope rating when you're determining what tees you want to play at a certain course, right? Like, take the course, for example, you love playing Rustic Canyon. You know what tees you're comfortable with there, and like know which tees you'll have a good time at, right? Like, maybe you want to stretch yourself and do this, but like if you're going to a new course that's, challenging, like Torrey South, what are the tees that you're comfortable with that you can have fun but feel like it's a challenge at the same time? look at the course rating and the slope rating of that and try to find the tees that match that at the new course. That'd be my recommendation, generally speaking.
And for those listeners who don't know what a course rating or a slope rating is, in the very layman way that I understand it, it is, think about a course rating is basically if it's a par 72 course and the course rating is 73, that means a scratch golfer on average would shoot 1 over par at that course. So higher the number, the harder it is. And then from a slope perspective, I don't know where the median is, Ryan. I don't know if you know, but basically the higher the...
113.
Oh, right. 113 is the median. So any number that's above 113, it's basically like, think about it as a curve and or slope, if you remember like high school algebra and calculus. But the higher the number, the trickier it gets when you're out of position. So if you're off the fairway, this course that has a slope of 140, it's going to feel harder to make par than a course that is 120, like a 125 from, being out of position.
Yeah, exactly. How fast are you going to get over your skis?
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I think about it.
Yeah. How fast is the downward spiral to the ground? All right. So hole 1, I wouldn't necessarily call this a friendly handshake hole. I think it's like a pretty narrow fairway. And there's obviously, we start right away with the left-right bunkering, but from the green tees, it's a 419-yard par 4, with a reasonably, I think, optically open tee shot, but I think it's deceptive because I think there's a lot of things that can go wrong at that tee shot. And even if you execute on a good tee shot here, you still have a pretty difficult green to attack with bunkers short right and all over the left side. So my sort of strategy here, it was, driver. I think I always want to, even though, Brian, as you know, I love my 3-wood. Driver, I think you always got to try to give it a fair shake. So, and this course can be very long, playing 6,600 yards if, with only a 3-wood. But in any respect, my line that I like is sort of right edge of the left bunker with the driver, and then coming into the green, really trying to have more of a controlled swing, with long being the miss. So, if I execute on a drive, my drive usually goes 250, 260. That leaves about 160 in, about. So 160 to the middle, 172 to the back. So I feel like that's a good 7-iron for me. So I love my 7-iron. That's like a fairly comfortable way to start around with. Just put a good drive out there, try to avoid danger, play to your miss, which for me is the fade, and leave yourself with a mid-iron in.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. I think one of the things I like about the first hole is it tells you what the course is going to be like in a way, for the most part, off the tee. It's pretty open. Like you said, there's bunkers left, there's bunkers right on the fairway. But if you're like, the right side of the fairway is the miss, I would say. There's no, on the right side of the fairway, the next hole over is the 10th hole of the North Course. There's no out of bounds between the two courses. You'll get blocked out by a tree, but like if you're on the right side and you're outside of the bunkers, like you're not in a bad position. It's a tough hole to make par on. This is one for me. You'll hear me say this about a few holes here, but a bogey on the first hole is a good score. Just focus on a bogey. If you're out of position and the pin is in a tough position, I think like you probably just want to lay up on the next shot is what I would say from there. But overall, first tee shot, I didn't stress about it. Tiger famously was terrible off the first tee at Torrey.
Yeah, 2008 U.S. Open, he doubled 3 of the 4 days.
Yeah, exactly. So he's just, it's tough. It's not an easy hole, and if you're out of position off the tee, it's like use it as the first, like practice early, take your medicine, move on to the next hole.
All right, I should finish that story. 2008 U.S. Open, doubled 3 of the 4 days, still won the U.S. Open.
Still won, yeah.
Still won.
U.S. Open for you. So, if you're a 15 handicap, doubling the first hole's not bad.
Not bad. But actually, you raised a good point. I think we'll hit on this over the course of the next 17 holes, but I think the strategy really here is like avoid double bogeys at cost. Birdies would be a fluke. Really just try to keep the score within par and bogey. And I've sort of highlighted, and I'll go through this, which holes I think are likely par candidates and which ones are likely bogey candidates. Obviously, it's not going to necessarily always play out that way, but hopefully I get a lucky birdie here. Hopefully, I'll probably get a double bogey here or there, but it's just really just trying to manage the damage as opposed to really trying to go for glory. But yeah, I definitely had this one as a bogey hole. So 2, on the other hand, is probably the more friendly of the handshake. It's not an easy hole by any stretch, but I think it's a much more approachable hole. This is 344-yard par 4 with bunkers left and right. I think it occurs on like 14 of the 18 holes. So the whole bunker left and right commentary is going to get old very quick. But you don't need a driver here. I think this is where I would sort of say, take your confidence club. I think this is a hole where on our last episode, we talked about playing back from the hole. I think this is one where I sort of think this is short par 4s are one where I like to think about playing back from the hole. So, a 220-yard shot in from the green tees leaves me with only 120 yards in, which is a fairly comfortable, pitching wedge shot. I don't have to try to step on it. I don't have to try to take a ton off. It's a fairly controlled pitching wedge shot for me. So I could probably take a 3-wood or even a 4 hybrid off the tee here. Just try to keep it in the fairway. Again, playing to the left side of the fairway, given my tendency to cut the ball. And even if I go left, it wouldn't be enough club to reach the bunker. So that's sort of the strategy. So even if I take a 4 hybrid, let's say I pull it left or I yank it right, it's still going to remain short of the bunkers and still leave me with, maybe not the pitching wedge, but maybe it's a 9-iron in or something like that.
Yeah, I'd say ultimately try to stay left on this hole off the tee. I do think it depends on your distance. It depends on where the tees are placed. But I do think for me, driver was always the play here because the bunker on the right is actually not that far down. So if you take a 4-iron or a 3-wood and you get stuck on the uplip of the of that fairway bunker, it can make a really challenging shot into the green. Whereas hitting over it and kind of down into this, rough patch down there, that's actually not a bad place to be if you lose it right. So, I'd consider that. But if you're just feeling really comfortable and you want to try and hang left, left is generally better.
Yeah, I think it's interesting the way that we sort of thought about this differently. And I will go back to, I think the root of why I decided to take less club off the tee here as opposed to go for driver, which I agree with you would totally take the right bunker out of play. And given my tendency to miss right, would not be a bad place to miss, is I would feel much more comfortable with a full swing pitching wedge into this green as opposed to some sort of 3/4 swing with another club if I had 70 or 73 or 76 yards in, right? So I feel like I know my full swing numbers more than I know my sort of fractional swing numbers, and so right now where my game is, I'm playing the full swing numbers.
You have to know your game, right? And so that makes a ton of sense to me. I mean, it's just like we talked about with Rory, the knock on him for a while is that he can't hit a wedge, but his superpower is hitting these really high mid-iron shots that can stop faster than anybody else's, right? So, it's what worked for him at Augusta. So I think if you know your game and you're more confident with a full swing than a partial swing, that's the way to go.
Yeah, me and Rory have the same problem.
You have the same problem.
We have the same strengths and the same weaknesses. Yeah. So that's a good player comp. But I did asterisk this hole. I do think it is one where if you execute it properly, you can get par. Maybe you get lucky and you get birdie.
Yeah, this is definitely birdieable depending on where the pin's at for sure. I will say the green here is
super small.
The green's pretty small. It's a short hole, so it doesn't feel that small, but it's the first hole where you really feel a few different, it's not necessarily different tiers, but different sections of the green and where you really feel the pull of the ocean on your putt. It's going to break to the ocean a little harder here than it feels like it does on the first green. And so even though that everything breaks towards the ocean, this is the first one where it can get you. So it's worth maybe playing a little extra break. Again, depending on where the pin is, but it's definitely gettable if you have a good drive and good approach.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to hole 3, probably the marquee hole of Torrey Pines South. This is obviously the short par 3 down the hill overlooking the Pacific. Absolutely gorgeous hole. Very often you'll see people hang gliding or parasailing, over the cliffs of Torrey Pines, which is just a totally awesome thing to see. But this hole in my mind is only rivaled by 7 at Pebble and maybe a few others that I've had the fortunate circumstance to play in terms of just overall beauty and truly what golf is about, because it takes the juxtaposition of something so naturally beautiful with something so frustrating in terms of just hitting a fairly, like a fairly standard shot. Like it's only 146 yards from the green tee. It's not like it's a difficult shot. But when you're standing up over there, you're just shaking in your boots because you know that left is dead, long is dead. So I've just written here in my notes, right is safe all day. Trust your shot shape.
Yep. And I would say, especially as like a 15 handicap, like you hit the right side of the green, hit the fat part of the green, or even the fairway next to it. Like, I don't care where the pin is. If you can make bogey here, like bogey's a good score on a par 3 for a 15 handicap. Take your bogey, take your 3 putt if that's what it comes to here. Have to chip on and 2 putt, whatever. Like, obviously try to make par if you can. But stay out of that front bunker. Don't go long. Don't go left, right? Just the right side of the green is where you want to be.
Yeah, I think
for me was always the distance control here.
Mm-hmm. The wind is really the factor.
Clubs, yeah. The wind can play a factor, yeah. But that part you're just gonna have to try and figure out on the day.
On the day, yeah. A question for you: if you have a tendency to go right with your shot shape, like I do, would you aim for the left side of the green and just have it naturally fade towards the right? Would you play more center of the green and bring the fairway into play, like you kind of mentioned? The one thing that you would hate to have happen, and does happen for someone who's a 15 handicap, is that you do have a two-way miss from time to time. And it's holes like this that I find where you can get really into yourself mentally, and you can be like, okay, whatever you do, don't do this, or, you get this like fit of the don'ts, and then you can get really quick. And when I get quick, I actually tend to go left, not right. I end up hooking the ball as a result. So how would you approach that?
I try to factor in what does my left miss look like, even on this hole, right? Like I pretty consistently play a fade, and I don't, like, my miss is more of a pull. It's like a straight pull left. And I kind of understand what the dispersion of that looks like. And what I do is try to make sure the back left part of the green is the furthest extent of that, and then kind of play to the right. In this hole, if you hit a fade, it actually kind of helps you in that way, because if you hit a fade, the wind might hold it up and might pull it back left a little bit. If I just hit that pull, I've hit that pull when the pin is in that back left position and like put it 2 feet away from the pin. Not trying to do it because it's just too dangerous of a shot. Then I look like a genius, like a shot maker compared to everybody else, but it's not what I was trying to do. That was literally like worst case scenario, was putting it 2 feet from the hole in that case.
Yeah, in some respects, it's actually nice to have the pin on the left-hand side for this hole, because you can miss, you can, if you hit your natural shot shape, then you'll just be safe. If you accidentally get a case of the poles, assuming you're not too far left, I mean, you can end up in a really nice spot. But a lot of this
too far left, and you've accounted for it already. Like, you just got to go, man, that was just a really bad shot. Like, something happened there. Like, it just happens. Like, yeah. Move on, do it again. Just drop down there, try to get out. Move to the next hole. It's
interesting you say bogey is a good score on this hole, because I would have thought of all the par threes, this is probably the one that you could par. So I'd actually asterisk this one as a par hole, but we'll come back to this because I don't have that many.
It's kind of early in the round, and you don't have a feel for the conditions a lot at that point in time.
See, for me, just taking a step back, as I look at these 18 holes, I actually think the most scoreable holes are 2 through 6. And we can go through this in more detail.
There's a lot of scoreable stuff, but yeah, let's keep going. We'll talk about it.
So hole 4, I think I find this hole to be tough. It's a 420-yard par 4, which doesn't sound that daunting, but it's uphill the whole way, and there's usually wind. I've felt like I've had a great drive and still had like 200 yards in. This can be a really tough hole. I think the one advantage to this hole is that you just have to stay right. There isn't much here beyond the bunkers that sort of start coming into play at about 200 yards and then extend to about 250, 260. But what I actually like is playing sort of the right side of the fairway and playing to a cut over the bunkers. I actually feel like if you end up in the rough here, on the right side, that is, it actually leaves a pretty good line into the green, which is otherwise protected by a bunker in the front center of the green. You just don't want to go left. So again, trying to avoid the big OB ball is sort of where, and like if it goes in the bunker, fine. But like I think the way I sort of play this is like play to a cut off the right side of the fairway have your miss be the rough, and that'll actually leave you with a better angle into a green that is otherwise protected if you were playing it from the center of the fairway.
Yeah, if of all the times that I played this hole, I think I ended up in the fairway of the 5th hole more than I ended up out on the left, and I'm totally okay.
Just the way they designed it.
Just the way they designed it. Yeah. No, I was totally fine with that. Like, I think one of the keys to going from a 15 to a 5 is basically at all costs avoiding penalty strokes. And so in this case, it's really easy for me. I'm like, oh, there's this big patch of grass. There is a tree over there that might get in your way, but honestly, like, you're probably, I don't know, you'll lose half a stroke by being behind the tree or being in that fairway bunker. And it's hard to hit that green because it's guarded on the, like, and the front middle. There's that kind of pot bunker right in the front. You can also, on your approach in, there's like a hill to the right of it that kind of feeds it back into the lower part of the green, and everything rolls to the left towards the ocean on that one pretty severely anyway.
To the right,
so
the whole way.
I just aim to like the right side of the green and hope it's down there. This is a bogey hole to me.
Yeah, totally.
Like total bonus if I make par, but I try really hard. You can easily make double bogey here if you're not being cautious, and so I play for bogey on this hole.
Yeah,
two that I consider a par 4.5.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think you raise a really good point of like, you might lose half a stroke on average if you go to the right? Even if you end up in the bunkers. Like I was saying, I'm okay being in the bunkers. Why would I be okay being in the bunkers? Because I'm not OB left. OB left is a guaranteed -1 stroke, right? I might lose half a stroke to your point playing out of the bunkers, but it's way better than being anywhere close to left.
And even if you drop down there, you're probably on some weird side hill.
Sure, totally.
Stuff. Like, it sucks.
Worst case scenario, you're hitting 3 from the tee box. Like, then it's more than one shot in my mind. So, because it's a par 4.5 anyway. So,
Just to clarify, it's not technically out of bounds over there. It is like a lateral drop penalty area.
Oh, okay. So. All right. Well, that's good. Hole 5. All right. Please tell me that you agree with me. This feels like a hole where you should be able to par. I don't think I've parred it in the 2 times I've played Torrey Pines South, but it's a hole that in theory you should be able to. Here, I was sort of going back and forth a little bit because it is this very skinny fairway. I think that's the hardest part of this hole. It's a 393-yard par 4. It's somewhat downhill. The green's very gettable on most days. It's fairly flat from what I recall. You have acres of room left of you, acres of room right to you, because you have 2 on the left-hand side. You have 4 on the right-hand side. So you could really spray it anywhere. So because of that, I said, go driver. You take the bunkers out of play. And you have so much room left and right that you're probably still in a pretty good position to try to get onto the green or near the green on your approach shot, even if you miss the fairway.
Yeah, I thought, for me, the fairway bunkers were very much in play on this hole. But what I would do is I would aim on the left, basically for the left fairway bunker, and try to cut it back in. And the fairway kicks to the right. And there is almost like a little speed shoot down there if you hit it in the right way, and you can get, an extra 20, 30 yards of roll to give you a really nice shot in. But I didn't find being in the fairway bunker too terrible. I think if you, on your approach, end up short of the green, you can be in pretty good position to get up and down. The green is pretty straightforward, I feel like. Like, there's a couple big breaks, but it's severely back to front. So like in terms of, the fall line of the overall green. So if you go over, it's really hard to stay on the green coming back.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And if you go left, it can be hard keeping it on the green going the other way. So unless you have like a really high lob shot around the green to land it softly, it can be really, really tough to keep it on. My thought is like, you almost, if you're not comfortable in hitting the green, you almost kind of want to lay up. And,
oh, really?
Like, try and chip up to the pin from in front of the green. That was not to say that that's what I would do, but I think like if you're out of position in the numbers game, unless you're really good out of greenside bunkers, like that might actually be the higher percentage play. But
yeah,
that said, the middle of the green's pretty fat, so you can aim to the middle of the green, I think, and that has your widest room for improvement. There's a little shelf on the left-hand side of grass, so you might be able to stay up there. If you hit the right side of the green, it's not necessarily going to roll off into that bunker, but that bunker is pretty steep. So if the pin's on the right side too, you can get pretty short-sighted. pretty quickly. But
Got it.
short,
I think it's interesting you play like, yeah, it's interesting that you're mentioning that about I mean, that's not something I would have necessarily picked up on, but I think you raise a good point around, again, like playing to your misses. And so if you're not in a position where you feel like very confident that you can hit the center of the green, you play to the chip and run from the front of the green because it's an uphill chip to a fairly generous green. So even if you're not the most confident in chipping, and you very well know that I'm not the most confident in chipping, assuming you don't leave it like 30 yards short of the green, you can use a pitching wedge or an 8-iron or even a putter probably to just get up there, and get it, lag it up close, get it close, and hopefully you're left with 3 feet for par.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
That's interesting. All right, I'm going to remember that one. So I put in here in bold, heat check on driver. So this is going to be a recurring theme throughout this round. So for me, I have a lot of confidence in sort of my 3-wood and a lot less confidence in my driver. I think it's important when I'm playing these difficult courses to just sort of check in on myself, like, hey, how am I feeling with this club? Like, and for me in historical rounds I've played here, it feels like, oh, it's a par 5. It's a fairly short par 5. It's only 505 yards from the green tees. It's a fairly comfortable carry distance in order to meet the bend. It's a dog leg right, but there's all of this waist area to an OB to the right of it. And what I end up doing is I end up trying to hill a drive, and I just slice the crap out of it, and it goes OB. I put in here heat check on the driver because the 3-wood can put the ball in play.
I am going to disagree with that. I think that anytime I've tried to be conservative off of this tee, I have made a mistake. And I think by taking less club here, you're actually exposing yourself to more downside, because for me, some of the worst drives that I've hit off this tee still made it past that waist area with driver, and they wouldn't have with the 3-wood. If I were you, what I would do is kind of like we were saying on 4, there are fairway bunkers straight through, and part of me was always, I hit it into those bunkers many times, hoping that I was going to hit a fade and it would be fine, and I hit it straight or even pulled it a little bit. Like, hit it into those bunkers. It's a par 5. You have another shot. Just aim for those bunkers and like play a little more conservative on your line and just like go for that. You got to make your decision on how you're feeling about your driver, I think, in the moment. But to me, if you hit it in that waist area, your drop is not in a good spot. And like, it's not like you gain territory like you would on 4 and you drop up there. Like, you're probably only 100 yards down from the tee box, and you're still trying to get down past the waist area. So I would go for distance and like not care where the ball ends up as long as it's straight. But I think there's a little more room for error with the driver here than there is with the 3-wood. But you're actually your call in the moment.
No, I think it's interesting. I think this is the whole point of the episode, is that I don't know all the answers, and I think that the way I initially may have thought about something could have easily led to a double or worse on any of these holes. So it's helpful to hear your perspective. And now, as I'm looking at it, at 273 to the middle fairway bunker, to your point, I would have to hit an exceptional drive given my capabilities and have it not curve at all in order to end up in that bunker. And I'm on that line, just looking at my GPS here, you're still in play the entire way. So you're not really flirting with danger. Hopefully it cuts a little. Hopefully it doesn't like banana slice on you. But like if you're just hitting a fairly decent cut, even if you get a bit of a push, you're still going to be either on the right side of the fairway or maybe in the right rough, and is the worst. And even if you execute on that drive and you hit it, 260 yards the way I sort of expect my driver to go, you're still left with 240 yards in. So it's gettable, but let's talk about the approach, because I think this isn't a hole that I would necessarily go for the green on into unless I was feeling really good about my lie. Not because it's of the distance, but more the bunkering around the greens, and it's a pretty like skinny green. So I actually like playing it to the front of the green, kind of what we were talking about in the last hole, and then just having a bump and run and trying to get birdie that way.
Yeah, I think
birdie
it's
or par,
rough.
sorry.
'Cause even
Yeah.
if you're in the fairway, there's like some undulations in the fairway that if you're trying to hit a 3-wood and the ball's below your feet, like, man, that's a tough shot. And I have tried that many times there. And I can probably count the times that I actually hit the green in 2 shots on this one on one hand.
Right.
You know, like it's tough to hit it in 2. The hole is deceptive, especially if you follow the tour a lot, because they play this as a par 4. I believe they did in the U.S. Open. I believe they do I think they did in the U.S. Open, but I believe they do like on the January tour stop too. So, I think it's easy to think of this as a relatively easy hole, but I found myself falling into that trap and having to remind myself, like, no, this is a real golf hole. Like, it's a par 5. And if you're trying to get from a 15 to a 5, not making bogey on par 5s is
Huge.
the name of the game, right? And so that to me, like, if I could adjust that and just get a 5 here, didn't matter. Like, let's just lay up. Let's try and chip up close to the green, whatever it is. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good advice. Hole 7. So this is one of my favorite holes on the course, even though I found it very difficult. I just feel like it's very pleasing to the eye, but it's not an easy hole by any stretch. So this is a 424-yard par 4, dogleg right with a fairly, it's not an overly daunting tee shot by any stretch, but I think what makes it difficult for someone with a right miss like me is that if you miss it right, there's acres of space in terms of rough, but the rough can be very thick over there. The lies can be pretty bad, and then you're blocked up by a tree, and you have the same OB that was on your right coming on 6. You have that now coming again on your right on 7. And so this whole course sort of sets up really nicely if you play a draw. It doesn't set up as nicely if you play a fade. But here, I think, again, I've sort of put that you can take driver off the tee here and aim for the far fairway bunker, and sort of just hopefully it guides a little bit right. And if it tugs a little bit more right than you're intending, you're still okay. You're probably just a little bit behind a tree. If you happen to be behind that tree, do what we did in the last 2 holes and play to the front of the green and chip and run.
Yeah, I believe this is the number 1 handicap on the scorecard, which I always found hard to believe because I thought it was, it's the number 1 handicap.
Yeah, it is.
Number 1 on the index. I kind of find that hard to believe. It's not an easy hole. That's not what I'm saying. But I do love this hole, as you said. I find your comment funny about the course setting up easier if you play a draw. I think this hole sets up like wonderfully if you play a fade, especially if the pin's on the back right. But that's just my thought here.
Well, what I mean to say is I guess it's punitive if you have a right miss. So here on this hole as well,
I see.
The greenside bunkers are right. They're shortened right. So if you're hitting a miss, you're probably not getting all of your carry distance either. So, and that greenside bunker is not easy. So
it's not.
Here I've said, again, if you're blocked out, just play to the up and down, avoid that greenside bunker. I think here what you're really just trying to do is the damage will probably come around the greens more so than off the tee. So you're really just trying to manage to playing to a reasonable number from within 40 or 50 yards.
Yeah. Especially if you're blocked out on the right, like you said. The miss on your approach is definitely going to be left. I think if you're looking at the midpoint of the green, like the middle of the green, kind of like we were talking about on the 5th hole, it's a little fatter in the middle. And then on this one, there is a little catch area back left that I don't know if you can really see very well from the fairway. It's not like all the way in the back of the green, but it kind of covers into that front to middle. So I would say what you want to do, if the pin's in the back, like that's a sucker pin. Don't go for it. It's really narrow back there. Take enough club on your approach to go for the middle or front of the green. It's okay if you end up short or left with that distance.
Yeah. Hole 8 is another par 3. It's the 17 handicap, but I've always found this hole very difficult. So it's not difficult in terms of yardage, only 150 yards from the green tees, but there is a sort of a bit of like a boomerang looking green or a horseshoe, however you want to call it, but it's sort of divided by this threesome of bunkers that sit in sort of the front center of the green. There is a little bit of like a fairway catch area on both the left and the right side, but I kind of find it hard to pick the right number and like really commit to a club on this hole. So what I've put in my notes is just club up. I think it's easier to club up than take a little bit more club if you're not positive about the yardage. I'm curious to hear your thoughts, because I think it's sometimes you might feel it's easier to play forwards on a hole than play backwards if you do end up catching all of it, if you do club up. But for me personally, I feel like this is one where I never really know the right club. And so I feel like I should just tend to club up.
Yeah, it's a tough one. This is one where I just try to hit it on the green. Like, just try to hit it on the green. It's hard. Like,
it's just that simple. Just hit it on the green. It's just that simple.
Well, what I mean by that is, like, choose. It's all about distance control here, right? So it's club selection, and almost even, do you want to choke up an inch or so to make it? I don't know. That's what I do for distance control a lot. I don't know. I'm not like here's my 95% swing or 90% swing. I don't know how to do that. I just choke up a little bit if I need to hit it a little shorter. But like, I would say you probably don't want to be short here. That front bunker is really deep, really tough. If you go a little left or right, that's fine. Like I said on hole 3, like, bogey is a fine score here. Just try not to get yourself completely out of position. Don't try to be a hero on this hole. Just try and put it on and make your miss as small as possible. Like, that's all I can say.
Yeah, golf's a simple game. You just get on the green, right, Ryan?
Yeah, exactly. Get
it on the green.
You just have to boil it down to that. Like, don't be a hero. Just
get it on the green.
And the other thing I'll say about this hole is, like, you might just end up in a bad spot. Like, and it's hard because if you're just a little bit to the left, it could bounce out and down the way. Like, just try not to compound your mistakes on this hole. It's really easy to hit one bad shot and end up with a 6 because you're trying to make up for it. Don't do that. Just, if you miss the green, if you're in the front bunker, if you're in the back bunker, whatever, just try to get it. Sometimes it's hard to keep it on the green from wherever you're at. Try and keep it as close to the green as possible. Like, just make sure it doesn't get into one of those other bad spots.
Yeah. All right, we're on to hole 9, the last hole of the front 9. It's a 514-yard par 5, straight as they come. The tricky thing about this hole is not, in my mind, is actually not the bunkering off the tee shot, and it's not even trouble left or right. It's really all comes down to the approach. So let's skip ahead. Let's assume we all take driver. Even if you spray it right, you got plenty of room to the right. Not to worry. It's a 3-shot par 5. Not because of, again, distance necessarily, even though it is a fairly lengthy par 5 for a 15 handicap, but really because you want to control that shot into the green. So you kind of want to play it back from it, leave whatever number you're comfortable with. For me, that's like anywhere between 95 to 105 yards. I feel like it's a pretty solid, 56 degree. Like, I feel pretty confident in that number. And so that's where, that's how I would think about playing this hole, because there are bunkers short. The bunker complex short left is one of the worst places to be, and I've been in there, and it sucks. So I'd much rather just not try to get there in 2 and bring those bunkers into play, and really just try to play to a number and feel confident a wedge got in.
Yeah, I think I've had a little bit of luck getting there in 2 on this hole, but it's like with 2 perfect shots on a day with perfect conditions, because you can get a little extra roll on your tee shot, and if I hit a perfect 3-wood, I can keep it on kind of the front of the green here. But for the most part, for me, the biggest thing, I agree with almost everything you said. I'd aim down the left side of the fairway here. If you go left, it's actually not a bad spot to be. It opens up a lot. And if you're in like the rubble on the far left, that's where they put a bunch of, I don't know, service trucks and stuff during the tournament. So it's all like free drop from there, I believe. So you can kind of get back and get a decent lie for your second shot without being too far out of position. And then the big thing for me, I was just looking at how far out this is, probably about 60 yards out, 70 yards out from the middle of the green is this bunker that cuts in from the right side. The big thing for me is like avoid that. There's some hills around there. There's that bunker. When you're hitting your second shot, just make sure that you either have enough club for sure to get over that and then kind of settle for a middle to right miss, or just lay up short of that and hit a full wedge into there.
Yeah, I think I like the full wedge. Again, I'm more confident in my yardages on full swings than half swings at this point. So that was sort of what I was thinking too. But you're totally right. That bean-shaped bunker that cuts in off the right is a terrible place to be. This hole is all about avoiding the bunkers.
It is, and the green's not that hard on this hole.
No, it's not.
Like I've had a lot
Quite big.
of success on this hole. So like if you can get up and down, or you can get to 15 feet and make a birdie to close out your 9. Like that's how I believe when we were playing there, and I somehow shot even on the front 9. I believe I made birdie on 9 to make that happen. But
There you go.
yeah, I think that was it's always been a good hole for me in terms of when I have a good round going, it's almost a bellwether on how the rest of the round's gonna go. Like if I've had a good 8 holes and then I can birdie this one, it's like, okay, it's a good day. Like I'm playing this course well. If I make par or bogey, it's like, okay, it's still TBD.
Yeah. Ryan, tell our listeners, after shooting even par on the front 9 and birding 9 that day, what did you shoot on the back?
What did I shoot on the back? 50? I think it was literally like 50. I think it was like 36, 50. Yeah. I didn't even break 80. That was amazing. But what was that like?
That's Torrey Pines for you.
A kid or something like that when I hadn't played. So
I mean, it was pretty.
I think it was the second round back.
Yeah,
I'm okay with it.
It was pretty incredible. You shot even on the front. To be honest with you, I was ready to. I think I was probably somewhere closer to 50 on the front and 50 on the back. But that's. I was ready to walk off 9 and just call it a day then. But so
I had a round going.
Yeah, you had a round going. You got to stick it out for your buddies, even if you're not playing that well. All right, so hole 10. I like hole 10 a lot. I've hit some really fantastic shots on hole 10. It always brings back good memories. It's not necessarily an easy hole. It's a bit of like a zigzag hole, even though it's a short par 4. It's only 352 yards. But I feel like it's a nice sort of this is one of the few places where Torrey Pines South is generous in terms of it being, with not being a ton of trouble. There's a fairly wide section of the fairway to land your tee shot. The green is small and it's heavily sloped, but even if you miss long, I've missed long on this hole and you can still chip up and down. So I feel like long is your miss in your approach shot. But the next several holes are really challenging. So really want to make sure you try to make par here, because you're going to give up strokes in the next. And again, going back to our whole strategy theme here, you also have to anticipate what's about to come and know that you're not going to necessarily get strokes over the next couple holes. So when you have the opportunity to gain some strokes back, you got to capitalize on those. And I think that's what some of the best golfers in the world do, is you see professional golfers walk off a hole after making par and just like kicking themselves. And you're like, why is he kicking himself? He just made par. The reason is because he had circled that one. Is you have to score here if you want to make the cut. Like if you want to be in the top 5 if you want to be in the hunt going into Sunday, you got to birdie this hole, right? So I think that's really a really important part about strategy, is knowing when you need to score and trying to execute in that moment, knowing that you may not have those opportunities in the next couple holes.
Definitely. This is, I mentioned holes being a par 4.5. Definitely not a par 4.5. This is a par 4, like solid par 4. Green's pretty big. The only place where the green's really tricky is that back right pin position. It gets a little fast back there, slope in kind of back towards the ocean and just towards the back of the green too. But yeah, I think you shouldn't have very much in here. That bunker on the left side of the fairway, when you're looking at kind of like directly in line with the green, I found it never came into play. So like you can kind of just ignore that, but the miss is right. There's plenty of green there. The bunkers aren't super treacherous, even if you end up in them around the green either.
I mean, it misses right, but I've been left on that hole too, and I've made birdie. So
yeah, missing the fairway left is fine. I just say that because it's not like 9 is, even though they run along the same border of the property. The fence cuts in a little bit, so if you like put it like it's OB left, so I just like don't go. I just 100% am like there's a mile and a half to the right. Not really, but there's a lot of room to the right. Just go right, and you've got an uphill shot into the green, which I like uphill shots into greens for some reason. It works for me, so I'm just do that. It's a big green.
Hole 11, par 3 again. One thing that's kind of interesting about this hole to me is nothing about the hole itself or the design of the hole, but I feel that of the last couple times we've played here, there's always a backup on this hole. This hole gets really busy for some reason. So I feel like the strategy here is just remaining loose, like, because it's sometimes you might have a 5-10 minute wait before you're hitting your next tee shot. And I feel like that can be a round sinker too. So what's your advice to people? You're playing a municipal round on the weekend, it's looking like it's gonna be another 5.5 hour round. Hopefully, that doesn't happen too often to our listeners, but like, those rounds happen and you're sitting on that tee box for a while, waiting for the group ahead of you to move. I mean, and then you stand over that shot and you're like, man, I haven't swung a club in like 10 minutes. Any advice for folks who go through that?
I have a few different levels of advice is how it's coming to me. One is walk the course, because you're going to stay loose if you walk the course versus riding a cart if you have that option. That's my general advice. Two is, like, for me, it was never a huge issue on situations like this where there's just like, sometimes there are just choke points in the course. And so this one, you're 10 holes in, it was, usually there's not like a big break between the front nine and the back nine at Torrey. It's just like you're on to the next hole. There's a little halfway house, but I always feel a little rushed, like, I'm going to run to the bathroom and fill up my water. But I'm always like, feel like I'm behind getting to my approach shot on 10 fairway anyway. So it's nice little breather for me in this particular situation. But otherwise, I mean, in terms of staying loose, just like, I don't know, if you're riding in a cart, it's a long day, you just, I don't know, do some jumping jacks or something. I have no idea, actually. I don't have great advice for this. Walk the course. That's what I
Walk
have
the
to
course.
say. Walk
Yeah.
the course.
No, I think this is a good.
If you walk the course.
I think this is my advice is probably like physical advice is really good, right? Like remain limber, walk the course, like walk around. Even if you're in a cart, just get out of the cart, walk around. Yeah. I would also say though, from a strategy and mental point, like I think take note, like use this opportunity to really like study the hole. It's not an easy hole. Like we'll talk about it in a minute, but like I think this is a pretty like you need a pretty accurate shot with a mid to long iron on most days. So it's not like it's a 120-yard pitching wedge kind of a par three. Like this is 190 yards from the green tees, right? So like take note of the hole. Like think about what your next shot's going to be. Don't just like only think about it when you step up to the tee box. But I think this is also a good point to just hit pause and sort of take a deep breath and like reflect on the prior 10 holes, right? So you're more than halfway through the round. How's the round going? Like check in on yourself, like mentally, like where are you feeling in your game? Where has your miss actually been? Has it been the miss that you tend to have? Or are you having sort of a new miss? Like I'm not suggesting that you change anything, but I think it's important to like take note of where your game is at after 10 holes, especially if you're sitting and waiting on the group ahead of you.
Yeah, I think so. Cause the next few shots, it's all about the next few holes, I should say. It's all about deciding aim points is what I'd say. It's all about deciding where to aim on these holes. And you can, because especially at this hole and then 12, you're into the wind. If you are off a little bit in terms of the ball's fading a little bit more than usual, or drawing a little bit more than usual, you should take that into account because the wind's going to exacerbate that. And it's going to put an extra 3-4 yards to either side on it. So yeah, it's a good point to kind of take stock of what your ball's doing.
And I think also while you're reflecting, try not to stew in the past. Like I think it's important to like appreciate where you are, but then leave it in the past, right? And so when it is time for you to step up on that next tee box, make sure that you have a clear mind. Make sure that you're not thinking about the shot you had on 10 or 7 or 3 or whatever. You're thinking about the shot that you have here on 11. You're thinking about what you need to execute on, to your point, having aim points and making sure that you're having full intent over every single shot. But so the point around self-reflection is really just to take stock of where you are, but not necessarily like stew in the past and like either reminisce about highlights or get too low about, lost balls. It's really just, or strokes lost. It's really just an opportunity to sort of check in on your mental state of your game.
Yeah, I think I love what you said there about just kind of checking in. This is a great point in the round to take a step back and just appreciate where you're at too. Like Torrey, you're about to go into this great stretch that extends out. You talked about the parasailers before. They're jumping off from that point at the end of the course. You kind of came around this little canyon, kind of comes in a little bit, and you walk around that, or you play around that, and then you end up out at this point. So it's a really beautiful place in the course. There's some office buildings off the 11th tee there. I know a guy who would work there. Just take a look at that and think about, man, it must be nice to look out at Torrey Pines and the ocean and the parasailers all day while you're working. Or maybe it's torture, I don't know. But either way, it's a good point in the round to, if you have a minute, just take a breather, kind of appreciate where you're at and take it from there, because it's about to get tough.
Definitely about to get tough. So the hole itself, I mean, look, again, I don't really have much. It's a 190-yard shot. For me, that's somewhere between a 5 and a 6 iron, depending on where the wind is blowing. I just sort of pick a line and commit to it. I think this is just, again, going back to the mental side of golf, here you really just want to commit to a swing. And that's all she wrote on hole 11, in my mind.
Yeah, commit to a swing. I'd aim like your distance should be mid to front. There's a back shelf here. Don't try to hit the back shelf. I don't care if the pin's back there. It's total sucker location. If you end up a little left or a little right in one of those bunkers, or even beyond those bunkers, like, you're not dead. I think I've had more miraculous chips into the green here and gotten up and down than any other hole on the course. I don't know how.
This green catches really well, I feel.
The green catches really well, yeah, especially if it's not that back pin. If there's like a nice little ridge that it kind of brings it down to front middle. So
yeah,
it's, it's easy to make 5 here, but it's also like not that hard to make 3, even if you feel like you have a terrible tee shot.
I think the grain, I'm probably going to speak out of turn, but I feel like the grain goes from back to front. I feel like it's one of the few greens that actually understands that it's trying to receive, like, a hot, like, mid iron, right? Like, it's, so I think to your point about playing to the front and middle is the right way to go.
Yeah, could be. I will tell you, I did not get to a 5 by learning anything about the grain of.
Yeah. Okay. So we don't have to get. We don't.
No idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I mean, I think that's also, there's almost so much information about golf, and so much of it is like not really relevant to a person at my level, but somehow I think that it is.
I think it might be a thing. I will let you know. We'll keep the listeners posted as I explore golf in North Carolina. But I think playing on Bermuda grass, the grain makes a little bit more of a difference out here in these conditions. But I also might be making that up.
Hole 12. This is the 2 handicap on the course. I think it's a beast of a hole. It's a 444-yard par 4. It can oftentimes be into the teeth of the wind. It's a fairly straight-looking hole, and the bunkers, again, I don't know. For me, don't really feel like they're in play. I don't know if you agree with that, Ryan, but it feels like if you have a decent drive here, you should be able to carry the bunkers fine. There's lots of room right, so again, right's your miss. But it's just a long, long hole. Like, I think even if you hit a great drive, you still got a lot of meat left on the bone. You're heading into this green that is, it's fairly generous in size. But again, I've gone long and it, like, thought I had a decent chip back onto the green and it rolled all the way to the front. Like, there's not a lot of places you can miss this green either.
No, but it's a big green. It's a big green. Definitely a par 4.5. Not a terrible, like, intimidating drive. It's into the wind the whole way, though. This hole just feels really, really long. So, it's kind of like what we said on 4. Just like, it's okay to be in the front, like you said. Just don't. Yeah, I wouldn't try too hard. Off the left-hand side here of the green is really tough. Off the right-hand side is a little less tough, especially depending on where the pin's at. But yeah, I wouldn't. This is not a birdie hole. Don't be aggressive.
Yeah, this is lucky if you're a par hole, and I think that's true for the next couple.
Especially as a 15, just take, if you can get out of here with a 5, like, you're actually ahead as a 15 on this one. Like, I would guess that a 15 handicap would double bogey this hole. So if you double bogey this hole as a 15, that's fine.
Speaking of double bogeys, let's get to hole 13. So this is another, I guess, infamous hole, however you want to think about it, that Torrey has, which is the big par 5 with the big valley in the middle. It's got trouble all over the place in my mind. I mean, it's a 515-yard par 5, which makes it, I think, the longest par 5 on the course. And you have bunkers you have bunkers short on the left, which don't really come into play off the tee, but you have bunkers to the right that do. Then you have sort of this awkward distance, and you have this sort of like choice scenario where you either want to play it short and leave yourself with like 160-yard shot. So you play it short of the valley and you leave yourself with like 160 yards to the green, or you go into the valley and then you're playing a shorter club, but from a 40-foot deficit from like you play to a hole that's 40 feet above your head. I've never scored well on this hole. I mean, I don't even know where to start. I think I've written just like treat it as a 3-shot par 5, so in that sense, like, if you want to take 3-wood instead of driver here, it probably doesn't hurt you too much, particularly if you want to play a second shot that is short of the valley. But I don't know how you approach this one.
I just swing away off the tee. If you're in those bunkers on the right, it sucks, but it's not a deal breaker. There's a lot of room on the left here. A lot of room on the left. So I actually would just try to hit the left side of the fairway. Sometimes I'd end up in that left rough. It'd be fine. If I hit a good drive, I'd be able to try to get there in 2 Wouldn't always be able to, but you definitely don't want to be in those front bunkers of the green. Those, man, they suck and you're really steep. So on your approach, I think your second, or when I should, your, not your approach in general, but your second shot, I think you gotta, this is a know your game situation. Do you like hitting full hybrids or something? If so, like lay up at the top of the hill. It might be a little bit of a downhill lie. So you got to take that into consideration. Like there's, if you're comfortable hitting a fairway wood on something like that, like that's fine too. But if you're going to lay up into like that valley, try to aim for the right-hand side of that fairway and be down there. If you're down by the cart path, that's fine. Just like don't hit it. Take a club that's not going to get you to those bunkers and is also going to like firmly get you down that hill. It's an uphill shot. It's not easy, but I think what you need to do is make sure that you get past those front bunkers. If you go in the back bunker, like that sucks a little bit, but not as much. The green's actually pretty big. Just like aim for the center of it. There's a couple tiers to it, but if you get out of here with a bogey, like I think it's okay. I think
the size of the green here is actually why I like playing. I'm gonna have like a different. I think the way I'm going to approach this hole is maybe have like a plan A and a plan B. I think a plan A in my mind is you hit a great drive down the middle. You can hit a second shot to hopefully like halfway up the hill, leaving yourself with like an uphill sort of wedge shot that's short of those bunkers off of the right-hand side. And you can get on the green in 3 that way, right? I think plan B is you don't hit a stellar drive. You're in either the right side fairway bunkers or you're in the rough. And you kind of just want to pitch out to the edge of the fairway before it starts to dip down, and then leave yourself with like an 8 or a 7 iron in. And given the size of the fairway, you should feel fairly confident, even as a 15 handicap, to hit around the green, assuming you just again hit to the right distance. Like don't leave it short. Like to your point, long is probably better than short here, but really make sure you don't leave yourself short if you're going to use this strategy. And then you can kind of chip from the right side of the green, from the left side of the green. Like it's a fairly decent chipping surface in any of these. So it's a fairly big green. So hopefully you don't even miss, but even if you do, as long as you're not short, I think you're okay. So there are a couple of ways to play this, and I don't think there's necessarily a right or a wrong way. I think it really just depends on how your tee shot ends up.
I agree, and I think it's a total know your game situation. It's hard, like that's why it's such a compelling feature. It's like, oh, what do I do? Like pick your poison. There was a time I hit what felt like a perfect shot from the middle of the fairway, and it hit the very top, like right in front of the green, and it rolled all the way back down. And I was, and I still had like 75 yards or whatever uphill to get it on the green. And it's like, if I didn't hit that perfectly and it ended up in one of those bunkers up at the top, would that shot have been worth it? I don't know. Like I might have been in a lot of trouble there. So, maybe it makes sense to lay up. The one thing I will say, if you lay up in the valley, just focus on going to the right side. That left side pinches in a lot more down there than you think it does. And it kind of runs a little bit left. So just like stay right. There's a patch of trees between, that area and the tee box on the hole you just played on 12. So like that's just don't go that far right and you'll be fine.
Yeah. All right. Hole 14. I think this is where it starts to get a little bit easier again. So you got another short par 4. I mean, Torrey Pines South is all about these short par 4s and then these par 4.5s. Like it's kind of like that's kind of the story of Torrey Pines South. But you got another 340-yard par 4, trouble all along the left side. It's a slight dog leg left. But here again, if your tendency is to miss right, there's a lot of space. There is a grouping of trees.
Par 4 if you miss to the right, I'll tell you that.
Well, assuming you're not on the next tee box, yeah, you're right. I think you can miss right here, but again, I think you can try to take a more aggressive line if you feel comfortable missing right. If you've had some yanks during the day, like certainly just edge to the right side of the fairway, I think is sort of the line, and assume that if you miss right, you're probably still okay. It does make the approach shot into the green much harder if you're coming from the right than the left. But I think you just sort of do what we've been talking about this whole round, which is you just play to the front of the green and chip and run. If you have a shot at the green over that bunker, there's this short right bunker that basically protects it from all angles. That's not the left side of the fairway, which is a very difficult place to hit off the tee. It's a much higher risk shot, I should say, off the tee for a 15 handicap to go on the left side of the fairway. But so if you're coming, more than likely you're going to come from the right. If you don't have the right yardage in, or you don't have the right lie, or you're absolutely not confident, I think you just play to the front of the green and you just chip from the front of the green.
2 years of playing here every Saturday, and I still haven't figured out this approach shot. The best advice I could give is think about, the range of outcomes that you would hit with any given club that don't go long and don't go left, and hit that. But half the time you're going to end up in that front right bunker. I don't know what to do. So just that's my best advice on this one.
He doesn't know what to do, folks.
Maybe lay up. Lay up.
He's got the 5 handicap stumped. All right. This is where those 5 strokes are coming from.
The only pin that's friendly, this is one where I personally had to just decide, okay, I'm fine with making bogey on this hole. I don't want to make double bogey on this hole. The only pin position that I thought was really a par pin position was that front pin, because you could kind of lay up and putt up from off the green there, as you just described. But yeah, it's a deceptively difficult hole to score on.
Yeah, interesting. I had asterisk this one, so maybe I shouldn't have done that.
The first time I played there, I hit my tee shot off to the right a little bit. I think I was playing from further back too. I think I hit a 4-iron into there, and the wind was into the green, so I felt good that it was okay, 4-iron feels like it may be a smidge too much of a club, but the wind was blowing in, and I hit this perfect 4-iron. Then I remember I shouted hell yeah after I hit it, and the pin was behind the bunker on the right hand side in this little pocket, and I just knew it was the perfect distance. Maybe it wasn't a 4. It might have been a shorter club, but I knew it was the perfect distance, and it landed right there. And I had a birdie look on the first time I played this, and I was like, "Oh, this hole's gonna be my favorite hole on the course." And then it turned into I could never figure out that
nightmare fuel. Yeah, just nightmare fuel after that. Yeah. No, I mean, we'll talk about rustic a lot, but that is hole 8 for me on rustic for some reason. The very short par 3. Someone once described it as an island green, and now I can't get that image out of my head whenever I step up to it, and I haven't hit the green ever. I haven't hit the green.
That's tough. It's more like a volcano green.
Yeah. All right, so back to Torrey Pines. Hole 15, please tell me there's some reprieve here, because this feels like if 14 is not a gettable hole, then hole 15 has to be. Another short par 4, only 355 yards. Fairly straight the whole way. I think the real tricky thing here is just the approach shot, because you have these bunkers on the right that can really block out pins that they put over there. But I actually don't mind just trying to go up the left side of the fairway and have a cut over to the right. And so if you hit a straight ball on the left side, you got a great angle in, and it's not, even if you're sitting in the rough, you got a wedge in. So, it's a fairly decent lie to hit with a wedge. And if you cut to the right along, assuming you don't overcut, then you're not blocked out by the bunkers. So I kind of like going up the left side here.
Yeah, and the right side's really open too. I mean, you can go over the bunkers, but it's not the worst place to be. I do the same thing. As many times as I've had trouble with 14, I've come back and hit just a beautiful drive on 15 down the left side. And I think what I like about it is I feel like I get to swing so free off the tee here. Even I hit the ball pretty high off the tee. So even if I actually pull it left and end up going over the trees, there's this big room of grass, big area of grass over there where they kind of grow some extra. I don't know. It's if it's testing grounds. I don't know anything about what greenskeepers do with those extra patches of grass, but there's a lot of extra grass over there, and you can actually get through and have a pretty straightforward shot into the green. It's almost ideal. If those trees were a little shorter, I think more people would play it over there just to have the perfect shot into the green and in general. But yeah, it's a hole I've had a lot of looks at birdie on. The approach is a little trickier. The approach is almost a full club up is how I feel, because it's uphill and it's into the wind a little bit more. There have been a lot of times where I've hit the ball a lot shorter than I thought, or that I hit the green and then it rolls way further back than I thought. So, but lots of good birdie looks here. I've made a number of birdies here. It's a good way to bounce back if, 12, 13, 14, or 11, 12, 13, 14 gave you some trouble. This is the first one that feels okay, I can take a deep breath here.
Yeah, I think also for me, just on a personal level, I think, again, I struggle with the driver, and, I feel really confident with my 3-wood. And I mean, I play with a lot of people who see me hit a 3-wood. And just for our listeners, so I probably on a normal day will hit my 3-wood off the tee 240. On a good day, I hit my driver 260, but that's if I get it. And given I'm only gaining 20 yards, but improving my dispersion by a factor of, I don't know what the factors would be, but by a significant factor, people are just like, you just leave the driver at home and just get another wedge or something like that. Like get another iron. It's something I've thought about, but like going back to this hole specifically, like I actually feel like this is for me a 3-wood hole. Like I actually just want to, if I'm going to likely be coming off of a couple of bogeys, if not double bogeys on, from 11 to 14. I need a bounce back. I got to play to my strengths. I do feel like this is a hole where you should try to play to your strengths more than not, because again, if you don't score on this hole, it's not like 16, 17, 18 are that hard comparatively to the holes you just played, but it's not like there's a ton of scoring opportunities either. So this is sort of your last look to get a real score on a hole, and I feel like you gotta really capitalize on it. So take something you're comfortable with.
Yeah. I think this is the last. Well, 18 you can swing pretty free for some of it too, but I think it's like this is the most free swinging hole there is on the back nine, I would say.
Yeah. The 16 I've just written refer to hole 11, which is just pick a club.
Wait, sorry, hold on. I have a suggestion. So if you're gonna take the driver out of the bag and get a wedge, my suggestion is you should get a 64-degree wedge so that you can hit those 75 yarders, the 80 yarders that you have trouble with.
Yeah, exactly. I actually was at the range earlier today, just practicing 75 yarders all day. That's a 9 o'clock swing with my 52, and I was in them pretty nice. So I might have to take that out tomorrow when I go to Rustic. So hole 16, another mid-iron par 3. It's 183 yards from the green tees. This par 3 actually plays pretty difficult on the tour. I think more so from pin location than anything else. But when I've seen pros play this, either at the Farmers or US Open, or, they play the Genesis at Torrey Pines South this past year as well, the landing spot's always the middle of the green. Like rarely does anyone go pin hunting on this hole. So again, I sort of like just pick the right club and commit to a swing and just aim for the center. And frankly, this kind of goes for all par 3s when you're a par 15 handicap. Like I know we were kind of talking about where to miss, but like really your aim should just be, and I was joking with you earlier in the episode, but like, just hit the green here as well. Just aim for the center of the green. Like it gives you the most likelihood of still being on the green if you were to miss in any direction. So here is just pick the center of the green, pick a club you feel comfortable, pick a club that's going to get the distance, and just swing free and true. And even if you end up a little short, you're probably okay.
Yeah, the only modification I'd have on that is very hole specific here, and that's that left is dangerous and the green pitches from left to right quite significantly. So I would prefer to miss on the right side here, because usually that's going to leave you more green to work with if you're off the green, and you're probably more level to where the pin is at as well. So I think like right side of the green, like, is where I typically would aim. If you hit that spot, it'll trickle it a little bit to the left, which is nice. If you're in that bunker on the right, that's fine. If you're in the grass to the right, it's typically fine too.
Yeah, it should be said that bunker on the right is probably one of the easiest bunkers on the course, I would say. Greenside bunkers on the course, assuming you're not short-sided, it's a fairly easy bunker shot, even if you're not great at bunker shots.
Yeah, I agree.
Can you putt out of that bunker?
No, it's not that. It's
not that easy. 15 handicap can dream, right? So hole 17, again, not an overly long par 4, 398 yards from the green tees. Okay, so the weird memory I have of this hole is that I have no memory of this hole. And I don't know if that is because I'm so exhausted, and 18's fairly memorable that I usually sort of like forget about 17 altogether. And given I'm usually staring down the barrel of like a 3-digit score at this point, I'm usually just like, oh my God, whatever, get me off this course. But so I just wrote here that it's actually a really, really tight landing area. And I wonder if, again, even despite the distance, do you sort of treat this as a par 4.5, play it short of the bunkers, given how tight the landing area is, and just, again, try to play to a bogey. The one thing I would say about this hole is that this is not a hole where I think you can play to the front of the green and chip and run, not because you can't, but because, again, the landing area in the front, it's pinched by these two bunkers in the front, right and left. So it's a very, very difficult little narrow gap to land it in. So I don't know. I don't really remember playing this hole very much, and I don't think I played it well historically. So I almost have nothing for this one.
So I think it's not as narrow as I think you are thinking of it, but also the bunkers on the right-hand side of the fairway aren't as treacherous as they could be. So it's not that big of a deal if you're in those fairway bunkers. I've ended up right of the fairway bunkers many times too. That's a fine spot to be. The green's elevated. Like you said, you don't want to be short. So I take an extra club into the green, even if it feels like you don't need it. It's a lot harder. It's a pretty big green back to front too. So if you do that, it's a lot harder to go over the green than it may feel like when you hit the shot. I've done it before. It's not impossible, but you definitely want to miss like aim long left is kind of the idea here. But yeah, it's not unless you end up unlucky in the fairway bunker with your lie, it's I don't think it's that tough of a hole. If you bogey it, it's fine.
Got it. And that takes us to hole 18. Again, a very memorable hole, the only hole that has water in play. At least that isn't like the beach or the Pacific Ocean, I sort of view this again as it's a true 3-shot par 5 for a mid-handicapper like myself. There is a bunker to the right of the fairway that is certainly in play off the tee. Even though I've hit very good drives on this hole, I have ended up in that bunker. So it does pinch in off the right more than you think when you look at it off the tee. So I like aiming up the left center of the fairway here, having the ball cut to the right. Hopefully it stays out of that bunker. Even if it's in that bunker, it's okay because it's a 3-shot par 5. So just give yourself enough space so you're not going to go in the water off your second shot, and just try to hit a wedge close after, over the water.
Yeah, I think that's it. I typically would use the furthest fairway bunker on the left as my aiming point here. It would always seem that I was aiming very far left. Like people would comment that. But it's so much better to be on the left than the right. It's tough to get there in 2. It's not impossible if you can hit your, like a 3-wood, like 230, 240 off the deck, but the lie can be a little wonky. So definitely take that into consideration on whether you're actually going to do it or not. Like I'd do it if you're like trying to shoot a score and you're like, if I do this to shoot 79 and like you're really trying to break 80, like then why not? Go for it. If you're just generally trying to lower your handicap, like maybe you want to be a little more conservative there, right? The thing I'll say about that pond in the front is it looks pretty small on the map. Like even if you're looking at satellite imagery, I would pretend that it is almost twice as big in the land area. Like make sure you are way short of it, like 30 yards short of it where the ball lands. Even if you're hitting like a 6-iron or whatever on your approach there, because it can run and it can roll into it pretty quickly. And it swallows golf balls if it gets within 10 yards. It's not like it's just stay away from it. If you're going to avoid it altogether. Don't make the mistake of laying up and then still taking too much club. Yeah,
there's absolutely zero payoff in trying to get close to that thing. So it's like a black hole. Just leave it alone.
Yeah, it really is.
All right, so that's Torrey Pines South. So I also went through a process.
Wait, we forgot the green on 18.
Oh, sorry.
Approach.
Oh.
So the green, like 4 distinct quadrants here, more or less. It has a really big spine in the middle, and like there are 4 distinct pin positions here. So if the pin is in the front left, like you want to make sure you're ending up behind it. But like try not to go on the back tier. If you're back there, it's like a real fast putt there. But I think the biggest thing is to end up on the right side of that spine. And if you're laying up, like it's a pretty big landing area on either side of that spine. The greenside bunkers here aren't the worst thing in the world. Depending on where you end up, it can be hard to get up and down, but it's par 5. Like if you're 15 handicap, like making bogey here is fine. It's a great finishing hole. It forces you into a decision too, because even if it'll tempt you to go for 2 if you have a good drive, even if you know that's not the right.
Again, I think you just got to keep the ego in check there. If you're a 15 handicap like me, I think again, as a 15 handicap who's trying to lower their handicap to 8 by the end of the season, I think it's more about just avoiding strokes lost than necessarily picking up strokes gained. And even if it's a situation where, yeah, you could in theory go for it, and like maybe 2 times out of 10 you can get there in 2. Like why play that low of a probability, right? So I've actually gone through the process of like highlighting a couple holes where I think I could really score. I haven't necessarily corrected it for things that we talked about here, but on the front 9, I think hole 2, hole 3 potentially, and hole 5 are sort of the 3 scoreable holes. I think you could argue maybe hole 9 is scoreable as well, but you really have 3, maybe 3.5 holes on the front 9 that you can get And on the back nine, it's not a ton either. It's hole 10. I did call out hole 14, but I know you've not necessarily had a lot of success there. Hole 15 looks like it's obviously gettable, and then maybe hole 18 is another place where you could par. So I've sort of said, look, if I could somehow manage to get one birdie on the round, try to play to 6 pars. So I had six and a half holes that I'd highlighted as sort of gettable holes, right? So 1 birdie, 6 pars, 9 bogeys, 2 doubles is sort of what I'm aiming for. And that would get me to an 84. That would be obviously a tremendous score. So there's obviously margin for error there. But I think if you kind of highlight, like if I can get through the front 9 without a double bogey, I think that would be a huge win, because I anticipate hole 12 and hole 13 as being double bogey holes. So if you can save your bullets for those holes, I think you can actually shoot a really good number. So if you can walk up of 9 with like a 40 to a 42, I think that would be terrific.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the Gin app right now. I believe an 84, if I'm looking at some of my past scores correctly, translates to a handicap differential of 9.
Yeah,
that'd be a really respectable round there. Certainly.
Yeah, and I think based on the index though, it plays 3 strokes higher than the index. So if I'm trying to target, so said differently, if I'm trying to target what a 8 handicap would shoot on that, it would actually be an 11 differential. So I actually have a couple of strokes to play with.
I believe you. I'm but also we might.
I looked into this.
Different things. I'm not sure.
No. I followed you. No. I followed you. But I was just. I think the difference is like the index handicap.
Course handicap, like the course handicap. When you calculate your handicap, it's like you get 11 strokes. Yeah.
If you were an 8 handicap.
If you were. Oh, I see. Gotcha. Okay.
Because of the index.
Yeah. So that's 12 equals 9, basically. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
So I think again, I think the way I would phrase this is the overall strategy here is keep your ego in check, play to your misses. Don't be afraid of coming up short of the green and then playing a sort of bump and run shot. Preserve your double bogeys for the back 9 and, executing on holes where you feel like you can score, because there's not that many. So I think there are courses you can play where, like I play Rustic. I feel like I have birdied and triple bogeyed every hole on Rustic, maybe except 7. But like there is and maybe 14, but pretty much I've birdied or tripled every single hole on Rustic. Torrey Pines is a totally different animal in that, like, there are really only holes where, as a 15 handicapper, I feel like I can actually execute a good score on. And so it's really important, that fifth component of what I just said, of like really focusing in and having intent on those holes where it feels like you can actually shoot a score, because there will inevitably be situations where you are going to have a double. Like as a 15 handicap, you are going to have a double. So it's really just managing your doubles to the holes that you think that you're going to double, and try to execute on the holes where you have the opportunity to execute.
Yeah. Recognize in the moment, in the hole, recognizing that if you do not be conservative or play it safe, you're going to turn a double into a triple. Like triples add up really quickly, right? Doubles, you're going to make them on a course like Torrey Pines. So if you can keep doubles to doubles, that's fine.
Where are you playing on Saturday?
I'm playing at the Duke University golf course. So
that's fun.
If you were paying attention to US Open qualifying last year, they had a 7-person playoff for one spot. Harry Higgs won that. So that's how Harry Higgs got into the US Open last year. I think guys shot like 63 or something like that to tie for that 7-way playoff. So I'm excited to play it. I was just looking at this up. I think it's a Robert Trent Jones Sr. design, refurbished by Reese Jones. It refurbished it. So I guess that's the history, is an old course. So I'm eager to give it a whirl. That'll be totally different. I haven't played with this many trees in play, like, ever. There's so many trees here, man. It's like the world of trees here in the Carolinas. But yeah, I'm eager to check it out. Well, the first round since Thanksgiving, so 6 months almost, which is that 6 months, 5 months? So a very long time for me. So excited to see how it goes. Well,
maybe since both of us are playing, over the next couple of days, I think what would be really great for the next episode is just sort of how we applied those 5 principles to the game in the real world. And obviously we can do a recap of my round at Torrey, but given we're both sort of playing, we're both playing in the next couple of days, it'd be good to sort of just like take stock of that and sort of and just have sort of a commentary on that.
I love it.
All right, dude. I gotta go do fatherly duties, but it was great chatting, and we'll do another one of these soon.
Yeah, man. Have a good one.
All right. See ya. Bye.
All right. See ya. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Low Point. If you like what you heard, please subscribe or leave a review. If you want to learn more, you can check us out at thelowpointpod.com. We'll be back soon with another episode. Until next time, be kind to yourself and enjoy the process.